What up, Footer Nation? Gary Hootenholla here, and welcome to another episode of NYBS Radio. Right here from the great state of New York. I'm super stoked for tonight's show. As you say, like we always try to bring different people, different researchers on from around our state. We always focus on New York, and we have a fabulous one on tonight. Tonight we have Jerimiah Fountain. Also, my boy Kenny Irish, who I miss him. I never get to hang out with him anymore.
What's going on, guys? It's an honor. Buddy. Really, it's an honor. Really, an honor. I'm very honored you had me on, man.
Oh no, we're super stoked to have you. And like you say, I mean, we love having different people on from around the state, especially good people. Kenny and I, you'll always hear us talk about. Yeah. It's all about we're family-oriented, good people in the Bigfoot community. I mean, and once again, it's we're blessed to know you, and we definitely wanted to bring you on and hang out with us and chill for a little bit, and talk back at you. Let's talk about Bigfoot. You know?
Absolutely.
So,
and if we disagree on something, we're gonna love you anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, like I always say, we're all adults. We can all agree to disagree, you know?
Exactly. And that's the big thing is learning to agree to disagree, and that's why I love having Kenny on my team. When me and Kenny met, I'm an outdoorsman. Kenny wasn't an outdoorsman. He learns from me, but I learned so much from him. You know what I mean? He keeps me in check at all points in time, which is good because I need someone to keep me in check all the time. So it's just
I can relate.
We work perfectly together. So let's get right into it. So all of our guests can tell us about yourself.
Well, start out with a quick bio, I guess, if you want.
Anything, man. It's your show.
At the age of, I come from a logging family. My grandfather, my grandmother was full-blooded Mohawk. So I grew up to stories, hearing about these things they call, one name they use is the Aquanari, which actually translates into stone giant, which is interesting. I'd hear about, different cryptids and the lore they, that associated with them. Now at around the same time, my mother showed me a video called the Patterson film. And from that point on, it was all over. It turned into an obsession from the time I was 7 years old. So thanks, Ma. Anyway, so we own a lot of family land up here in northern New York, and right on the very, very northern tip of the Adirondack Park, right in between the Adirondack Park and the St. Lawrence Seaway Valley. And we're still into the tree business. Now is actually a very, very busy time of year. So, even as a kid, I always remember taking walks on the family land and, I'd ask my dad, hey, what was that noise? Oh, it was nothing, don't worry about it. Just a coyote, and even at that age, you're thinking to yourself, it didn't really sound like one, but and I never had, it became an obsession. I was having my mother buy me book after book after book on this phenomenon, Yeti, Sasquatch, anything, those were the two I was most interested in, and, my first, the land Stacy and I live on now is a 250 acre plot that my dad kind of turned over to us, which I thought was pretty cool, and on that particular, we've had back in 2016, we lived off the grid up there when we were working on the cabin, and talk about a ton of activity, just a ton. I mean, I'd had experiences there before, but I think part of it was they were kind of getting used to us being there. And the group that we have here they're not an aggressive group. They really aren't. The only issue I've ever had with them was I interrupted a hunt one night, and this was before Stacy and I were living on the property. And let's just put it nicely, they escorted me out, and that was fun. But anyway, like I said, we were living in a camper while we were working on the cabin. At night, they'd boom, boom, boom. They'd pound on the side of the camper so hard at a point where you could feel that sway back and forth. You could feel it. But it wasn't. Let me rewind a little bit. Back in 2000, it would have been 2001 or 2000, around that time. It was muzzleloader season, and no, excuse me, it was rifle. I told you, I'm sorry about my brain. It's the brain. It's the TBI. I forget small details.
Take your time, man. Dude, take your time.
See how I get rambling too. Yeah,
you're fine. They're used to it from me. You're good. You're on our channel. You're good.
Right. So I went down, took a walk, and this is way before Stacy. I walked down, took a walk. I said, I'm going to take a walk today, maybe work on the sand a little bit. And it's right near a big spring. Beautiful, natural artesian spring with the white quicksand. You can see it bubbling all the time. And that year we lived down there off the grid, I drank out of it the whole year. The whole summer. And you talk about good water. I mean, maybe something I shouldn't have done, but I did it. It tasted good. Anyway, so I decided to work on my sand a little bit. And so I took a walk. I had my 300 mag on me. And I always would go, it's something I was raised on. I would always go armed in the woods. From the time I was little, my dad would teach me, and it's not, don't get me, I don't want everyone out there to misunderstand me here. It's not these things I'm worried about. It's other things.
People.
You said it there. I was trying to sugarcoat it, but yeah, exactly. So I went down, worked on the sand for a while, and I decided to just sit there for a little bit. And as I'm sitting there, I kind of get a feeling that something's a little bit off, maybe, and it was starting to get dark. So I got out of the tree stand and I walked back. I was going down a logging road, and at the time, my old man had a old skidder. Okay, I was about I wouldn't say any more than quarter mile from the truck, if not less. He had an old skidder there, a log skidder. For those of you who don't know what that is, but and I'm looking and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I see like an amberish set of eyes, and I can pretty much identify. I'm like you. I'm a hunter. You can pretty much identify what you're seeing, what you're looking at. This tip of the skidder was facing forward towards my truck. Okay. And I stop and I'm looking at it, and it's got its head peeked around the corner. And, I got the headlamp on, and it went back behind again real quick. And so I walk a little bit further, and the second time, and this is when I got the really good look, it poked its head out, and this time it really poked it out, man. And it would have been its left arm that it had wrapped around the front of the skidder. And I could see a hand. I could see part of the arm, and I could see the face. And I honestly, I couldn't process it, even though I was a believer. Just something I couldn't process it. And you got to admit, it was intimidating, because that was like I said, that was my first face to face. And I'm no more than 40 feet from this thing. And it's interesting because when it looked at me that second time, it hopped back behind the skidder. Okay. And there was a log, okay, about 12 feet from the tip of the skidder. Okay. It was like, I measured it, went back and measured it, and it was like 12.6. Okay. So it took a leap, man. And when it took that leap, it could have been taking it from at the back end of the skidder, which would have added distance onto that. You know what I'm saying? Which would have added maybe another 10 feet, So this thing leaps, and the athleticism just blew me away. It hit that log, okay? And the only way I can describe this, guys, is that it used, and this is what I noticed. I don't know why. This is what I picked up on, but I did. Propelled it. It was like it propelled itself off the front half of its foot. And it was very bizarre. It made a little bit of a squat, did make a little bit of an arm movement, but mostly it was just a launch off the front part of those feet. And that to me was just incredible. I mean, talk about athleticism. I mean, and that's at the point where, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what am I dealing with? So once it propelled itself from that log, it launched itself to another tree, which is 15 feet away. Okay. 15 feet away, jump behind the tree real quick. Okay. And at this time, and I regret doing this to this day, but I did pull I'm not pro kill. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. I'm not pro kill. I just wanted to see if I could get a look at this thing through the scope. And back then, man, I wasn't as schooled in this field as I am now, So it popped out from behind that tree, and I was looking at the weirdest looking creature I had ever laid eyes upon in my entire life. Description wise, you're talking probably 4.5, not even 5 feet tall. Weight wise, probably a couple 100 pounds. And people say to me, well, that's not that big. I beg to differ. You take something that's 4.5 feet and they're put together 200 pounds, solid muscle.
Yeah.
That's put together. That's put. I mean, people just can't figure that out. But
that was me in my 20s.
Right.
Yeah. No.
But yeah. He looked at me, and the face. Now, what's weird about this one is the facial features. I couldn't really make any out, because unlike the other ones we have witnessed down there, between myself, Stacy, and I had a nephew and I that had an experience with me as well one time. Its face was covered with hair. The only thing I could see were those amberish eyes, and I'm saying covered. It was covered in hair, face, everything else. Long arms down below the knees, and the fingers. As far as the whole opposable thumb thing. Now, I don't know if you would consider that. I'm going to show you what I mean. A lot of people, it's hard to explain. It wasn't like this, okay? It was like the thumb was turned in. You know what I mean? Almost. It makes sense, because if you think about that, that would be made for gripping. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. I mean, kind of the only thing I can compare, the closest thing this thing looked to was an orangutan, to be quite frank with you, and except the hair all over its face. Now, I did raise the rifle, and I'm probably lucky I didn't get, ripped to shreds by mama, because she was probably not far away. I did pull up on it to get a better look, try to get a better look. As soon as I raised it, man, he was gone. He hopped behind that tree and pow. And the speed he took off at, right? I say he, I don't know, it may have been a female, was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I think what they do, and I was talking about this with one of the guys I do stuff with, we were talking about it the other day. They're very good at it. They, people say, well, it disappeared into a portal. Well, no, they're good. They are very good at, for example, hopping behind a tree and following a direct line to keep you blinded from seeing it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And all I could hear was it running, man. All I saw was the original couple leaves, and it stayed right in line with that tree. And that was that. But they definitely know what guns are. That's for sure. Because as soon as it saw the rifle, that was it. It was gone. It was gone. And I said, well, that's my cue to go. And I left, and I tried to process that for a long time. I looked online. Anyone have a pet orangutan or a pet date that got loose? But meanwhile, I knew what it was. I knew what it was. But it was something that was coming out of my mind and into my reality, and that's hard to process. It really is. And it didn't mean me any aggression. I feel bad that I actually pulled up my rifle on it. I do. But I just wanted to get a better look for myself, you know.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't know then what I know now. You're talking 20 years ago, you know.
Mhm.
At that point, I needed answers. Like, I needed answers bad. So, you know, I talked to my dad a little bit, and I said, you gotta tell me. I mean, you know, what's the deal? He's like, Jeremiah, I don't like something. And something happened with him when he was a kid that he just won't talk about. And my grandfather, you know, he worked in the logging camps in the 20s, and I think this might have something to do with it. But he said they used to see these things a lot, you know, in the logging camps. And they actually had a few guys come back to site one night and said, we're not going back to that spot tomorrow. And the foreman says, well, like hell, you're not, or you're not going to have a job. So you tell me, they said they were seeing these things, hiding behind trees, ducking behind stumps, stalking them from spot to spot. And these guys said, okay, fine. And they and two of them ended up leaving. One stayed. The two that ended up leaving were never found again. You tell me, okay, what would make two strong, tough Adirondack mountain men during the Great Depression walk off a job? What would scare them bad enough?
Yeah, no, that's you know, that's you know, the fact that you put it in that context too, you know, because you know, hearing the story, you know, I'm thinking, okay, well then, you know, they went to work somewhere else, but you know, when you put it in the context of the time frame and everything, it really makes you step back and think. And
it does.
Because I mean, you're talking, you know, I've always heard like the hardest job in the world is being a logger, and I know I wouldn't want to do it. And anybody that I've ever seen do it, I mean, they're not afraid of anything.
No.
And you know, the only thing they're afraid of is what they might do to somebody if they get their hands on them, if they disrespect them. So, yeah, no, that's great context in that story, and that I'm really glad that you put all that detail in there.
I will get more detail on that from Dad when I get a chance, and I'll catch you guys. I'll catch you up on the side, and I'll give you the full rundown of it. It's a pretty disturbing story. My dad now, and this is part of another reason he doesn't like talking about this a lot. And I'm not going off track. This has everything to do with what I'm getting into. You know, when I asked him, you got to be truthful with me. What's going on our property? Has this stuff always been going on? And he's like, Jeremiah, just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Well, my dad was on a certain, he grew up as a logger as well, you know, obviously. But he decided he wanted to leave for a while, and he went in the state police at 23. Became a BCI investigator. He still holds the record for the youngest guy in New York State history to get into the BCI. He was on a certain case of a missing little boy in the Adirondacks. I think we all know which one I'm talking about. A very famous one, and it still bothers him to this day. Yeah, I can tell because I even bring it up around him, and you know, he shuts right down. You know, so it still gets to him. You know, he wasn't the lead investigator, but he was involved in it. You know, but anyway, after 2000, I needed answers. I started doing a little research on my own, with a couple friends, nothing serious, you know, just like I said, looking for answers, man, looking for answers. So then in 2007, this was rifle season as well. I walked down to the stand. Didn't plan on sitting a long time. Okay. I had built in, there was another one right past, you get on the logging road, you walk past the spring, and you got to follow another trail to the stand. Okay. And again, I sat there for a while, and I wasn't intending on staying there long. And I heard, you know, thought I was hearing things at the time, but now that I think about it, I wasn't hearing things, you know. So I said, okay, you know, something told me to leave. You know, I didn't feel comfortable. So as I get out of the stand, I'm making my way out. I follow the trail out that leads to the spring. Okay. And I get about 30, 35 feet away maybe. And there is this tree in the water about 5 foot offshore. Kind of weird because there was never a tree there before. Just like, well, what's going on here? And all of a sudden that tree turned and eyeballed me, looked at me, dead in the eyes, locked eyes at me. And it was a female, a very, very big girl, auburnish in color. It wasn't quite dark yet. It was still light enough where I could see. She was auburnish in color. She was big. She was very big. I would have to say, man, it's hard for me to judge a height on her because, like I said, she was standing in that water and that's very silty. Okay. So she was sinking down in that mud. I don't know how far. Okay. So, but from what I saw, she was all of 7 feet. She's a big girl and we have seen proof of her since. She's still around. So, and she had vegetation in her left hand and she was holding on to it. And I'm guessing she had been feeding on it and maybe planned on bringing some back for the rest of the group. I don't know, but I was so close to her, I could see where she had been mounted on it. Facial description, wide. The mouth was just unbelievably wide. If you look at the profile picture for my YouTube channel, that was her. That's her. The head wasn't that classic conical head. It was more rounded. And she looked very clean. I don't know if it was, I'm sure they do groom each other, but she just looked very clean to me. And it was, I will emphasize this, it's hair. It's not fur, it's hair. There's no doubt about that. And I had my rifle slung over my shoulder, man, and she gave me that look. And she looked I saw her eyes flicker at the barrel of the rifle. They flickered back at me. And I'm not saying she spoke to me through mind speak or anything, but I could pretty much read what she was saying. If you don't, go ahead, try to pull it if you want, but you're not going to succeed. I'll get to you first. And I lost control of myself at that moment. And I think once she realized I wasn't a threat, that's when she turned, man, jumped off that bank, and she went with 3 leaps, about 60 afterwards. It was about 60, ended up being about 63 feet in 3 leaps. So you're figuring over 20 feet a leap. Now, the breasts, people always ask me about the breasts. They weren't as saggy as a patty. Okay. But they were there. I don't know. It's maybe she was younger, maybe hadn't bred yet, or we're all different, we're all different. We're going to have different characteristics. The mouth, that's the most, aside from the eyes, the most intimidating part about her was the mouth, how wide this mouth was. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I'd say ear, I always tell people, yeah, it looked ear to ear, man. But, that's an exaggeration. That's just the way I put it. But it was extremely, extremely, extremely wide, extremely wide, little tiny lips, not a lot of facial hair. So you could see skin tone, and it was like skin tone was almost a lighter version of her hair. Now, I didn't get any smell off her. People have asked me that several times in the past. No smell. I've yet, to be honest with you, I've yet to experience a stench. I don't know if you guys have or whatever, but years I've been doing this, I've never experienced it. Which brings me to I mean, it's a whole other conversation in itself,
Well, like you said, it's like, I agree. They all have their own characteristics.
Absolutely.
So, once again, it could be a glandular thing,
Yes.
and things like that. So if some of them smell, some of them don't, that's probably more than likely because some animals smell and
Right.
some don't at all, the same species. So,
Yes.
like I say, it could be just a characteristic
It
of that,
could be.
that individual. Or their environment that they're in.
Or their environment. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting, it was late fall. So, makes me wonder, does something come in for the winter? I don't know. It's speculation. I don't know. I don't proclaim to be an expert. There are no experts out there, So, I mean, I don't know, and her hair wasn't as long as in comparison to that juvenile, maybe 6 inches, man. And the most impressive part about that physique, man, was, her shoulders were wide, but front to back. You know what I'm saying? Sternum to spinal cord. And if I would have to say 3 feet, and that might be an exaggeration because of the shock, but it was just unreal, unbelievable. Same with her. The hands on her too. That same type deal, long fingers long fingers, but that thumb was turned inward, man. And a lot of people call BS when I say that, but what do you want me to do? That's what I saw. It's what I saw. And, she did have a very protruding brow ridge. Her nose wasn't extremely wide. And it wasn't up. It was more pointed like ours, down, nostrils downward, which I've heard different descriptions, this is what I saw, it's what I saw. The deltoids were like cannonballs. Just very, very impressive. And, I always quote Tombstone when I talk about, she looked at that rifle and, you gonna skin that smoke wagon or what? Skin that smoke wagon or stand there and bleed. Don't worry, honey, I'm not gonna skin it whatsoever.
You've said something that's been kind of intriguing.
Yes.
You've mentioned they had hair like not fur. I've never heard anybody ever explain it like that. It's usually they'll just say what color they are. So I mean. So as far as, can you kind of like describe what you mean when you say hair and not fur? So it was like the whole body like long hair, or was like the head hair with like the body fur?
Whole body.
Okay.
Hair for sure.
I've just never heard it explained like that. So.
Really? Wow. Yeah. It was hair. It was hair, not fur.
Wow, that's neat.
Without a doubt. Yep. Without a doubt. I mean, I can still see it to this day. I mean. Yeah, it was definitely hair, and the same is on the little juvenile. I mean, it was hair, and even though it was kind of a little bit darker then, but I didn't see any ears. If anyone's wondering that, there were no ears. Obviously there's ears, but I couldn't see them. And you could, they do have it. They do. I know you can't see it, but a lot, but there is a neck there. Okay. But it's not like our neck, it's very close to, the trapezoid collarbone. It's down there. You know what I mean? That's why when it's like a mountain gorilla, when they can't turn their head. They got to turn their, they got to turn like that. And, that would, to me, that's what got me. And, when this is interesting, you'll think this is pretty interesting. When when you get a pair of muck boots on and you're in the mud and you yank them out real fast and you hear that pop.
Yeah.
That suction.
Yeah. That mud she was in, man, when she yanked her feet out of that, the pop, this is an exaggeration as well, but it almost sounded like a 22 rifle. I mean, it was so loud because of the weight. If I had to guess a weight, I would say at least 600 pounds. Wow. She's massive. She's very massive. She's huge. Now the other, this was, like I said, this was back in 2007. So after that, that's when, I got with Will Jevning for a while. We worked together for years. But, after a while, it was time for me to get out on my own and do my own thing. So, I, left and started doing my own thing. I did a lot of when Stacy and I were living down there in 2016. That's when a lot of action happened. She saw a very, very large male, which I don't know. I haven't figured out yet if it's the alpha or not, but if he's damn big. My wife is a very brave woman. Okay. She had taken the 4-wheeler for a ride, and she parked it, and she was picking berries. And she said she turned around and looked, and coming out, he took 2 steps out onto the logging road and was in, 25, 30 feet from her. And he said they just looked at each other. And she said, Jerimiah, it was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. And Stacy's by trade is a paranormal investigator, and she's seen some pretty crazy stuff, but she's like us, when she believes these things are flesh and blood, like we do. But she said it was amazing. I said, well, you got to take me back to where you saw it. And she took me back and showed me where it had come out. Okay. And she said he walked, when he turned and walked away, they kind of looked at each other for a minute. And she said she didn't feel threatened one bit. Thank God, because when I measured, she said when he turned and walked away, he walked under that branch right there, and his head only cleared it by about 3 inches. So I had her hold the tape on the ground. I stood on top of the 4-wheeler and could barely reach the bottom of that branch. And it was like 10 foot 6. So he had to have been like 10'3". Like, wow. That's gargantuan. That's one of the biggest I've ever personally dealt with. And he, when we still see he's still around as well. But an interesting thing is, she said his shoulders, and she said the same thing I did. Now his shoulders were, she said they must have been 5.5 feet wide. They were just massive. But the most impressive part is when he turned was that sternum to spine, just the thickness and the hip. And that's what I forgot to mention as well. And that female, one of the most impressive parts was her butt. In all reality, her hip area. It was very impressive. She had muscular buttocks, massive legs, and she said Stacy was very consistent. She said the same thing. His waist, buttocks was very, very defined, very put together. So yeah, man, he's a beast. He's definitely a beast. But here's the thing. I have a buddy who is a law enforcement officer, and he lives in a town about 15 miles from me. And if you were to follow the stream, the creek, from my property all the way through the bush, you could pretty much walk right out onto his property. So the different individuals we have described to one another, they match right up. Wow. They match right up perfect. I have a feeling that it could probably be the same group. Who knows? I think what attracts them to our spot is that spring, which, the spring brings in the deer and other critters, and, they come in after the prey, and a great water source as well, Yep. So yeah, but anyway, this guy, what we described to one another is just amazing. It's actually episode 1 of last year's show, if you want to take a listen to it, but it's very, very impressive. Very, very impressive. And like I said, he's a law enforcement officer, and he's on the level, man. That's for sure. And the only one that we haven't seen that he describes, there's a big gray male, and he describes it as 10 foot plus. He told me a story of actually got the CD somewhere because he had a recorder in the tree somewhere, and he audio recorded all of this happen, man. His little girls were in the field on the 4-wheeler, 7 and 10, and something told him to, look to the wood line, and there's this thing doing its little squat, doing its back and forth, just staring at these little girls. And if it had wanted to do something to him, you guys know it very well could have very easily, So, but they, being little girls, they panicked. They hopped on that 4-wheeler, man. You can hear them start it up on that CD, and you can hear them scream, and then that thing lets out a blood-curdling just howl. Cross me a howl and a scream. But it's very eerie. It's very eerie. But yeah, it's quite interesting, man. And about 2 miles from where we live, I think I might have sent you this picture a while back. There's an event that happened up here. Okay, no, I shouldn't say event because it wasn't that big of a issue, but I had a guy get in touch, and there was a deer carcass that had been put in the same tree 3 times in an 8-month period. And it was 16 feet up in the air. And it was a straight shot up. Okay. 16 feet, straight shot, same limb every time. And, looking at the carcass, you can tell that these ribs to me, they look like they had been snapped systematically. And the thing was mangled, as well as the other 2, And like I said, it's 2 miles from where I'm at. So, and the guy, the farmer himself, has had encounters there as well. We called this is when I was still with Will. We called a big cat expert at Washington State University, and asked him, we do have cougar in the Adirondacks, as you know, contrary to popular belief, what people think, we do have them up here. And, I got thinking, okay, maybe a cat did it, but the guy said no. The difference between a cougar compared to a leopard and a jaguar is a cougar. They will do it. It's very rare though, is what I was explained by this guy. Very, very extremely rare. Especially when you're straight up and you have no limbs to bound off, which a jaguar and a leopard even would need. He said they don't have the structure for it. They're not built like a jaguar or a leopard. They don't have the jaw structure for it to actually carry a kill that big into a tree. Now, there could be other professors out there that would disagree. But from what I know about cougars, they're more of a barrier. Bury their kill, come back later, and whatnot. So I don't know. I just thought that was worth mentioning, and send you some pictures later of that. But in 2016, when we were down there still. Now the only thing about this group is that they do not like it when we bring people down there that they do not know. They have an issue with it, and they let us know. It's nothing malicious, but they'll let us know. I had a friend one night that accidentally, and I was kind of furious about it, but I told him, I said, don't bring a long gun with you. Whatever you do, don't do it. And what's he pull out of his bag? But a 12-gauge shotgun. So he let a round go right by my head. And I said, did you just let a round go? And he said, yeah, it was an accident. Well, yeah, that double-eyed buck could have probably did a pretty good number on me, dude, and right after that, man, across that, it's probably, 60 feet across that pond, about a 4-foot log is launched, and it lands about a foot in front of his feet, which makes me wonder, did that irritate them that he just about killed me? I mean, I know it's out there, man. I know for some people that's going to sound out there, but
it irritates me.
Well, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For real.
I know, it's a hard pill. A lot of this stuff is a hard pill for someone to swallow, but you can't help what you see. You can't help what you hear. And that's all there is to it. I mean, you just can't help it, man. And then, after, like I said, we were working on the cabin, and we would have at night, we'd hear now there was this other female that I've dealt with for a long time. She has a deformed foot, a deformed right foot. Now, I don't know if that was a birth defect or if someone maybe shot her in the foot. I don't know. But she would always seem to be alone. But she would come out from my side of the, we were still in the camper. We'd hear her walk across the logging road into the bush on the other side. And then we'd hear the pitter patter of feet. And she'd take off. When we'd get up the next morning, and there'd be little tracks. Now, what made her, she was leaving, what she was doing was leaving her young ones there, and they were within 20 feet of the camper, man, so it's very bizarre to me. Like, what, why trust a human being like that? And they knew we were no threat, but it still surprises me. You know what I mean? Because they know what human beings are capable of. They do, but, it would happen, at least once a week. I mean, it was pretty wild, man. And then, we moved to, like I said, North Carolina for a while, for different reasons. Stacey's mom was ill, and we went down, and we lived in a very rural neighborhood, very rural. And and the neighbors, they would throw their rotten food over the fence, which would bring in feral cats. Now, if we didn't have 200 feral cats in the neighborhood, I would be underestimating. There was tons of them. And when we took our original walk of the area, it was a train track, path of least resistance, and there was a creek, a bayou that ran under this trestle, and there was two ends we would work. We called one area the hunting area, one the bedding area. We would find it was crazy. And I said to Stacy, I said, I bet you, because we would hear, it was the most disturbing sound in the world. We would, you ever heard when a male cat gets on a female? That scream they let out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It was almost like that, except at the end, it would feel like, it would sound like it was getting the life choked out of it, and I've heard that talking to several people that, they're opportunistic. Let's face it. Mm-hmm. They're opportunistic. Why burn calories, run down deer and hogs when you can come into a neighborhood and mow down on feral cats? I don't know, man. Again, it's speculation, but could be a possibility. It's logical.
Because once again, they're scavengers. Everything in the woods, regardless if you're a Sasquatch that is super smart, is wood savvy, because they're wood survival savvy, or from something like a raccoon. They're all scavengers. So, like you said, they're gonna not burn the calories. Now, you're talking a couple 100 pounds. To you'll say like 700, 800, 600 pounds. Mm-hmm. They're not gonna expend those calories if not needed. Bears don't even do that. No. You're talking bears were over 1,000 pounds. Mm-hmm. So, it makes perfect sense. That's why we hear about Bigfoots coming up on people's houses, like cabins and things like that, and going through their garbage cans. Yeah, dumpster diving. Like,
exactly.
Perfectly said.
Exactly. I was very good friends with a police officer down there, and him and his partner had one run across the road one day, and they got it on their cam and everything, and let's just say it disappeared. Two people showed up, and it disappeared. And they were told not to talk about it. But
you brought up some great points, and also that is kind of similar to what we find in the areas that we look at. You brought up a gray one, and what's really cool is that I have a report coming out from the 70s. I used to work. He was a witness came out. I went out to the property. We were researching. He had a female and a young one. but there was also an alpha male, and he named them all. He had them all named.
Okay.
Well, long story short, now we fast forward from the 70s to 2017. All right, in the same exact area, the family clan pod, whatever you want to call them, have now moved only 4 miles. So they moved from one part of this forest only 4 miles away.
Sure.
Once again, now I'm getting reports of a gray one. So this could be, in my opinion, it makes logical sense that the alpha male that he witnessed back in the 70s when he was bow hunting in the woods, and the thing came up on him and started throwing massive rocks at him. Now, we're talking a seasoned outdoorsman. We're talking a firefighter, okay? We're talking a hunter that's like a seasoned hunter.
Yeah.
And he has a large, and he said the thing was like 10 feet, 11 feet tall, screaming at him, throwing huge boulders from high ground down toward him.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, we fast forward, and now we have a gray one. So it would make logical sense that that alpha male, more than likely, has now turned gray. So when we hear about the gray ones, you know, and someone also reported that, you know, in the chat that they find that the biggest ones are the gray ones. Well,
absolutely.
That would logically make sense because you have a possible older male squatch.
Yep.
But it's just changed colors, just like we do. We go gray. So now, and a lot of animals go gray. You know, we look at our dogs. You know, our dogs get older, their snouts start going gray. They get gray muzzles. It would make logical sense that a squatch, if it is hair, like you say they're covered in hair, so of course they would turn gray. So that's a lot.
It makes sense. Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. I mean, there was a guy who also witnessed one, and I've been trying to get him to. I know the gentleman; he's from the area here, but he is still so disturbed by this encounter that he hung up on me one day, and I respected it, and I'm not going to bother him again. You know, if he doesn't want to talk about it, that's, you know, I'm not going to harass the guy, you know. But he had one. Now they were hunting actually not really in the Adirondacks, more in the Syracuse area. Okay. And so anyway, he was sitting in this, he had his tree stand, and he said he heard a thump, 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 thump. And he looked, and he sees this big gray creature walking down a hill, man. But it was gray. He said it was black, but had the gray tint to it, which it might have been just starting to change over. Okay. Yeah. Now, get this. It walked 5 feet in front of his tree stand, turned and looked at him, and just kept walking. But here's the kicker. The bottom of his tree stand, where his feet were, okay, was exactly 7 feet. Now, this thing looked him directly in the eye. So that's got to be what? 11 feet?
Yeah, like 10, 11 feet, which then
would make sense.
Then so logically said, you could say, like the gentleman that said in the chat that they find the gray ones to be the largest ones. Logically, that would make sense. But
Absolutely.
Then we still have to think, though, that even though they're the larger ones, as they get older and age starts taking over, they may start getting smaller in the way of shrinking because they start hunching. Like we talk about, like the female, like they're more hunched over, more stockier. Things like that. It's funny because, I mean, let's ask this question.
Yeah.
And I brought this up because we don't ever talk about it. And Kenny, I think you were in the conversation after our radio show yesterday. People never talk about Bigfoot and disease. So we never hear about Bigfoot and the possibility of arthritis, the possibility of Lyme disease, the possibility of parasites. All right. I'm a licensed veterinary technician by trade. So I work in animal medicine, a big portion of my life and all my schoolings, and a lot of it is animal medicine. In animal medicine, we already know that even wild animals get parasites. All right. When you hunt, you can, you shoot a deer, you open up a deer, you can see all sorts of parasites in there. Maggots, especially. Maggots come in within 10 minutes. Maggots are already hanging out on. All right. And Tom Cooper said Lyme. Lyme is a big one. I mean, we vaccinate our animals, dogs, and everything, especially dogs, against Lyme disease. top of humans. I mean, especially in our part of the woods, we have one of the highest rates of Lyme and tick illness in the whole country.
Yeah, we do.
So it's awful. Like you and I are always in the woods. I'm in the woods all the time, like you are, and I'm, luckily, I don't know if it's because of my blood type or what, I don't get as many ticks. But also, I'm like super proactive on it. Like I use permethrin. I live in permethrin. I bury everything in that stuff. But we don't talk about this. So, what would you think about once again, Bigfoot? The possibility of a Sasquatch and disease, like what kind of diseases, like, and maybe could it be even that you talk about the thumbs? Could that be an inbred thing? Because once again, we would have to think that if you start seeing these weird type of bodily appendages and things like that, a living population of Sasquatches hypothetically would have to have some form of inbreeding going on within their little family unit. So could those little appendages on their fingers, that the way that they're bent, which would make sense for me as a part of from climbing and tearing. So I understand what you're, so when you're explaining it, I totally get what you're saying, because I logically it makes sense. But do you think that these things, so there's two questions. What do you think about Bigfoot and disease and parasites and Lyme, or in coccidia and worms and all this stuff, and then Bigfoot also and like inbreeding?
I personally, I think they're highly susceptible to any to parasites. I mean, I do. That's just my belief. I think they're susceptible, just like we are. Maybe over the years with them, being in their environment as long as they have over thousands of years, have maybe built up a better immunity to this stuff than we have. But it's still going to happen. I really do think they're susceptible to diseases like we are. I've taken reports of people that describe them sickly as hell, like sickly looking, I do. I really do. I really think they're susceptible. Worms, I mean, anything, any type of parasite, really. I mean, you look at any animal out there and they're susceptible. I mean, it's wild. I mean, as far as the inbreeding, okay, I truly believe that there's more subspecies of these things than people think. I really do. That's just my opinion. I do, and I know like you said, in some areas they aren't going to have a choice to maybe inbreed. And I can see in some areas, in others maybe not. So if does it happen? Yeah, I'm sure, without a doubt. I mean, I'm sure it does. I'm almost positive it does. Now I'll tell you this: when we had a sighting in North Carolina, okay, and they are totally different than what I dealt with up here. Totally different. Hands are more like ours. That thumb is not. It's more like ours. They're shorter. They're like huskier. You know what I mean? Like it almost looks like they have a beer belly almost, but we know it's solid muscle. But they aren't ripped up, and we went down to the spot one night. My stepdaughter, she's in the woods with me, and my stepdaughter, my research partner I had down there, and Stacy was home, but we brought someone else with us, one of her friends, and I was actually texting on the phone with somebody, and when we first got there, we noticed that, and as far as this eye shine thing goes, man, I've seen different colors. People think it's just red. No, it's not. I've seen blue. Different colors, and down there it seemed to be the predominant color that we would see would be blue. It's like a fluorescent blue. I got some pictures I'll send you after. Stacy, when we were in there, she likes to go dark, completely dark, and so we end up, when I do shine a light and we catch one, we catch some pretty cool stuff. But anyway, I was on the phone, texting on the phone, and I look up and I look across the river, and I got my headlamp out, and I see big set of blue eyeshine. And, you know, they were decent size, not overly large, but decent size. I would say, you know, maybe 4 inches apart, but good, big as far as, you know, round, not like a big male, fully mature male. You know what I mean? And we had a blue tick with us. Okay. And as soon as we got there, he looked down this trail and he bolted down this trail. And all of a sudden he stopped dead. And that wasn't like this dog, you know, not like him at all. And he turned right around and he came up and he sat under that trestle with us and would not move. So anyway, I'm like I said, I'm texting with somebody on the phone, and all of a sudden everyone freaks out. I can hear them all screaming. You know, these are all younger people and not used to this kind of craziness we are. But, not that we are fully anyway, but anyway. Oh my God, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is that? What is that? And it still irritates me. I didn't get a glimpse at the whole thing. They saw it come out of the bayou, full frontal view. Okay. And the way it came up, it turned. And by the time I got my head up to take a look, it had turned, walked up the hill towards the tracks. Okay. Towards the train tracks. And I imagine was going to either cross over to the other side or take that path of least resistance, you know. But in this one, we're talking about gray. I lit him right up and he was gray. He was a grayish color, you know. And like I said, I just got the side profile, very different jaw, like an iron jaw, you know, more of a protruding brow ridge than what I'm used to dealing with up here. He was probably, if I had to guess, you know, I would say 7.5 feet, you know, so maybe close to 8, but I'd say more towards 7.5. But he didn't pay us any mind at all, even though they're screaming, carrying on. And here I am, like, you guys got to be quiet, you know, just come on, tone it down a little bit.
Yeah,
you know, please. So he left us alone, and he just wanted to mind his own business. And he walked up that hill, and you know, he was gone. And it was cool because, like I said, they're totally different, built totally different. All the reports I took down there described them as being having that build, you know, very thick, almost like a beer belly, you know, still have the, you know, the long arms, but the face is more, I don't want to use this term, but I think I may be forced to, is like more like a Homo erectus or what, you know what I mean? And not saying it looked human in any way.
yeah.
So don't take that the wrong way. Yeah. Because there was nothing human about it, but in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
and it makes sense that there would be subspecies.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Of everything. All animals have. Every animal has some kind of species like that.
Everything. And there's probably subspecies within the subspecies. Who knows? We don't know yet.
No.
We just don't know yet. And you know, the night after that, I took my stepdaughter down again, my stepson, and she had a friend with her, and it was early, so I wasn't really too concerned. You know, it was dark, enough to be dark, you know, it was 9. But don't we see something coming out of the bayou? All right. And there's the moon. There was a pretty decent moon, so you could see the eyes. The eyes were like they came back as a fluorescent white. And I've got that video. I will send that to you so you can see it. And this one, I don't think it wanted us there at all. You know, it didn't want us there whatsoever. And it kept hiding. There was a big cypress tree right in the swamp, and it would continue to pop in and out. But he was coming close. All of a sudden, we hear a bang, and it was a boulder that had thrown, and he had tossed it so far. I mean, he was probably a good probably a good 60 feet away, man. And you could hear that thing hit rocks on the bottom. It was so heavy. Immediately after that, we got one behind us. Bang! Hear the same thing. I said, okay, Simon, that's our cue. They obviously do not want us here for some reason. Take that as a sign, But that's what's weird. The group down there that I dealt with, and I don't just, I have other spots as well up here that I research, and they all have their different attitudes. The ones I deal with on our property are pretty benign. I have other spots where they're a little bit testy, but this group down here was pretty. They would, how most of the time they don't want you to know they're coming in, walking in to check you out. They're nice and stealthy. They wouldn't care. They'd make it as loud as possible, just so you'd know they were there. And I'm sitting on my stepdaughter and I are sitting on the bank one night at the river, and it was still light out actually. And same deal, man. We had a boulder, and this was further. This is probably 80 feet across that river, and this was at what we called the hunting area. Okay, and that's probably what they were getting ready to do, and that's why they wanted us out of there. Well, here comes a boulder launched, and it lands right in front of us, no more than 3 feet in the water. And then we have another one from behind us come over our head and land in the middle of the little canal river. And I said, okay, that's our cue. They don't want us here. And it's interesting because we would find, I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. Stacy and I probably found 11 different turtle shells. I mean, big ones, any regular turtles to snapping turtles, where the bottom, the belly part was cracked. You could tell something forcefully opened it, but it would be cleaned right out. I can pass off one or two, as coincidence. But come on, when we're finding them constantly like that, seems to me like that was a snack. They were feeding on them, And, I heard a lot from the locals down there with the hogs. What they'll do is they'll jump the hogs, they'll snap a leg, snap all 4 legs, keep it alive, throw it in a tree, and they'll come back for it later, just so the meat doesn't go bad in that hot southern heat.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
As long as the blood is drained out of it, those things can sit up there and for as long as a couple of days probably without it. Well, anything.
Absolutely. But they were totally different. Looks wise. Attitude. They were a little bit edgier. And we got some really cool. The footprints were different. A lot more. I will say they were a lot more apish down there. A lot more. With that had that splayed toe. Very, 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 very cool. Some very cool stuff.
Awesome.
I'll send you some stuff, man, so you can check it out. But
awesome.
It's been an interesting ride, man. It's something I love doing, as you guys do. I know you guys do, and it's nothing wrong with it.
It's fun. We have fun doing it, and that's all that matters.
We have fun doing it, and we educate. And that's the reason. That's one of the reasons I do it. I want to help people and educate people.
Yep. That's what it's all about.
If I can help one person out, man, I feel like I've done my job for however long. But
exactly.
So it's all about, man. You see these people doing it for the wrong reasons, and it's just, not cool.
Nope. Well, Jerimiah, we've come to the hour mark, so this is awesome. This was awesome. You did awesome, man.
Nice, man.
You did awesome. Nice. But so you want to tell Footer Nation, where they can find you and all your stuff that you've been doing?
Yeah, if you don't mind, absolutely. You can go to our group page on the trail in search of living legends. That's the group page. Right now, the guys and I got a group of guys, good buddies of mine. We do a show called the Scoop Session Roundtable, which is a discussion on Bigfoot theory, investigation, stuff like that, technique. Then we have our other show, which is On the Trail in Search of Living Legends, which, we'll interview fellow researchers, like guys like you and, on their experiences. And on that show, we do get into other things once in a while, but it's mostly a Bigfoot show. We have another one we just started called the CIS, Cryptid Investigation Society. I have a really good friend who is a forensics investigator for a law enforcement agency. And that was his brainchild, and he does a great job. He's very, very intelligent when it comes to that stuff. So we've only got one episode of that out thus far. You can check it out on our YouTube channel. It's going well, man. It's going well. It's busy. Keeps me busy. Yep. And we've got one more project coming out. I can't say too much about it at the moment. Two projects, excuse me. But can't say much about them now. But you're going to see them in the future. You'll hear about them in the future. Real soon.
Awesome,
yeah, and if I can give thanks to just my, like I said, the guys I work with, Travis, John, Gary, Gary Spikes and P3, Israel, and Travis Bowen, good buddy of mine, great mind, Sean Wilson, JR Kitchen, John Switzer. That's the group right there I do the scooping session with, and what an awesome group of guys. So yeah, definitely like to bring you on some night, man. Both of you, actually.
Yeah.
Yep, that'd be great.
We'll hook up and we'll have you back on too. So
I'd love to come back on, because I could have talked all night, brother.
Yeah. We always have stuff to talk about. So
always.
Yo, Kenny, are you anything new for you? Or are you kind of just what are you doing?
Just doing the Bigfoot thing. Cryptid. I'm still writing. Got a couple books that I'm working on right now that are going to be coming out in 2021. I did just sign on with Corridor 13, talent management agency. So I'm pretty excited about that. They've got Russell Accords on that, Ronnie LeBlanc, Bob Gimlin is signed and represented by them too. So, and a bunch of other guys like Ronald Murphy's on there, and it's a lot of great people signed to there. Awesome. So I'm excited to be on that, be on that team as well. So
good for you.
So that's been the big news so far recently in the last couple of weeks. So pretty excited about it, looking forward to it. And in 2021, the show that I filmed in back in August is going to be coming out. So I don't have an exact date yet, but I'll definitely be letting everybody know about that. So
very cool.
It's going to be fun. Awesome. I'm excited about it.
No, very congratulations cool on that big signing too. That's absolutely awesome.
That's phenomenal. You deserve it, man.
Thank you.
You definitely do. You work hard, and it's awesome to see. It's super awesome.
It is.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. I forgot one shout out I got to give.
Go ahead.
Do it. You got to do
it. My wife and I do a show together. It's called the Paranormal Cryptid Show with Jeremiah and Stacy, where we kind of cross fields. And we do that with Todd Bates. He owns WLTKTV, the station. So we do a show every Monday night live with him at 9 o'clock. I think 9 Eastern. So yeah, it's great to work with my wife. She's awesome.
I think I've heard of that show.
Yeah, I think you have too, man.
Yep, and anybody
we screwed the recording.
Yeah, Kenny was on that, so
he was, and I felt horrible about it, man.
What that I was on it?
No, that we had tech issues, man. Oh, I was mad.
That's all right. Tech issues, it happens.
Yeah, it does.
We've had plenty. Don't worry. We've had.
Oh yeah, we have our share as well, man.
So. But awesome. All right, well, Footer Nation, we will be back in a couple weeks. All right, so and by then, hopefully, we'll have some new stuff to share. I'm working on a project right now with 6 other New York researchers throughout the whole state. Can't really talk much about it because I want to have results before I even talk about it. So, as always, friends, keep it squatchy. We'll see you out on the trail. Deuces, everyone.